Hi everyone, this is Jim here. I'm going to talk to you today about a little firewood shed that I'm in the process of building right now. So first things first, we had 4 cords of wood delivered, and we figured out we didn't have a place to put it, so I just decided at the last minute to try to put something together. Now this video is to show you how I did it. This is for a one-man crew, just myself, so I didn't have an Amish barn raising crew or something to help me hold everything in place and lift stuff. So I had to figure out how to cobble this thing together. I'm also just a DIY kind of guy. I'm not a professional carpenter at all. I just have some tools. So this is a video for those of you in my position that just want to build something, don't really have the professional skills, but have some inspiration. So here's how we did it. So first things first, I knew I had to put this thing together with dimensional 2x4 6/8 lumber. I was going to actually use heavy posts and things when I first thought of this at 4x4s or 4x6s or 6x6s, but those are too heavy and too big to wield by yourself to get level. So here's how we did it. So this shed is basically just resting on a floating foundation of cinder blocks. I bought a set of cinder blocks and put them in a rectangular pattern, and then just used some simple basic tricks. I leveled these two. I used the square corners of the blocks to actually get them in line with each other, and then I measured off the distance to the end here, and then used a string line to measure the diagonals, as is common, to make sure the foundation is square. Then when I got these squared up, I put in 2 sticks on the ends of them and ran tight string, just twine that I found, all the way down to sticks on the other side to get a level. And I used a level, kind of hand level, to find that level that it needed to be. And then I used the tight string and then just plop the blocks down in place. And then I had to go around under each block and excavate. I got rid of the sod. Our soil is extremely compacted and gravelly, so I don't have to worry about doing more than just taking sod off. And then I found some old bricks that actually gave me some more height to get these half blocks up to level. This ground was not perfectly level, and so the blocks down on that corner had to raise up. Those are actually on 2 rows of bricks on top of underneath each of those blocks. But once it was done, it was tedious. It was a couple hours of sitting there fiddling with these things, but once we got it in position, once I did it, everything was level and square. So the next thing was I built 3 of these just simple wooden platforms. Basically, these are 2x6x8s and are sided with a 2x6 split in half. I nailed them together with a nail gun, and then I put in some simple joist hangers on the corners to make it look a little nicer and to make it a little stronger. I built those over here next to my little workstation, shot them together really quickly. Then we carried them into position, dropped all 3 of them on the platforms, and then mated them together here to get them tight, used clamps, and screwed them in a number of times. And at that point, I was able to use the mallet and tap the cinder blocks around and move stuff to get them perfectly in line with the corner so it looks more professional. You can see the line of the block lines up perfectly with the foundation. You actually have a lot of play here because the bricks are just floating, so you can tap on them after you lay the platforms in. The next thing we needed to figure out was all the vertical structure stuff. Again, I didn't want to use heavy timbers because we would need a lot of people, or at least two people to hold them while they're being leveled. So I figured out a way to do it without having to use all the cross bracing and all the stuff that most people normally use. It worked for me. Was to start by using simple 2-dimensional 2x4 lumber face nailed on the inside of the frame. And if you see, all corners have it flat face nailed in there. And so in this particular case, I started with this, and I discovered that if I use 2 screws preset into here, then I can put it in with my hand, get it in nice and tight as hard as I can, drive the bottom screw in. That sort of locks it in, doesn't lock it in, it's quite loose. However, then at that point, I can use my level, hold it up, and find the level in this direction, and then once that's level, I can set the second screw, and that sort of locks it in position. If you have a 5.5-inch surface, if you have 2 screws about 3 inches apart, that's fairly stiff. It's not strong, but it's stiff enough to hold it freestanding without bracing it while you're working on other things. And so I first did that, and by leveling them all in one direction, I was able to level them in the direction that they're being face nailed, not this way, but that can be handled later when you add crossbars. So right now your goal is to just get them level in the direction that you're face nailing them, going across all corners. In this particular case, on the inside runs, I faced them perpendicular instead of flat like the outside corners, and just ran up all 8 corners. And that was very quick. Again, because I didn't have to sit there and try to brace it. I just sat down, zipped them in. The next thing about this that I discovered, which was kind of interesting, is that once you face nail them in, you then are in position to set on the outside 2x6s, which then can be nailed to the ones you just put in, and you can add these cross bases before or after. I did it in both cases to give you a little bit more stiffness. But when you do that, you actually can then use this to form the ledger for your header beams that you need, the 2x10s, to form the roof structure. And so if you look on the back side, you can see the first 2x4 is up higher than the 2x6 ledger board beam. And you can actually see across all of them how it works. The inside posts have 2 boards because they're face nailed on both sides of that platform. But basically they form a platform. And once you do that, you actually have a very strong structure. This is basically how post and beam works. Normally, if that post was like a 6x6, you would just notch this out, and it would be a lot of work to carve it out and get it perfect. This way, you actually get that same strength. The weight of these carrying beams are carried through this post directly down, resting directly on basically the equivalent of the bottom plate that goes right into the concrete foundation. And so you're super strong here, and you're in good position. And so what I recommend here is that when you're putting this together, I use screws, just drywall screws, just temporary screws. We'll replace all of these with exterior screws and lag bolts and things that we need to do this. But that gives you the ability to move things around a little bit to get things square. For example, when I put this together, and when you use dimensional lumber cut to good lengths, it actually will show you when you're off. So when I put this beam up, everything was level, but I noticed that the center line was actually shifted an inch, which basically said, oh, okay, this post must not be level in this direction. I was able to level it this way using my trick. And so I put the level up, it wasn't level. I just simply unscrewed the 2 screws, used a mallet to tap it level, put them back in. And so by using those screws, you can make a few little fine-tune adjustments here and there. But that's all you need to do. And this was actually quite a simple project. It's quite strong, I believe. I'm not done, obviously. I got to put in the sides and put in more bracing, and this is quite temporary. But the only disadvantage to this approach is that by face nailing in the corner posts, the starting corner posts, it's going to make it a little bit more tedious to put in the floor decking here. I got to notch out for that. Some people would have platform framed this and would have actually, before putting the verticals on, could have put the floor on and then framed up walls to be raised and nailed the bottom plates in like conventional framing. But I don't know, something about having the walls only held on by nails nailed to the ground doesn't seem as strong to me as posts that are anchored into the bottom frame. This thing is quite rigid. So anyway, I'll post another video when I get this thing done. Again, I'm still making it up, but this was quite easy to do. It's all 2x lumber. You can do it. And again, just use screws to start so you can get yourself, and always use, that'll let you get things square as you go. All right? Anyway, I'll talk to you later. Hello everyone, Jim again. Hey, I'm just going to give you a quick update on the Firewood project. I showed you where it was at the first part of the framing. We're making progress now. So what we did here was I finished the interior. You can see we've already started wood stacking it. You can see what it looks like with some wood in it. It'll be full. So not much to show here. I just put a standard deck in here. A little bit of the interior work. We ended up lag bolting in all of the different beams. You can see there's the lag bolts right there. Using 2x6 headers, using rafter ties, and that's about it. We ended up putting some lattice in. You can see, I just framed it in. You know, I put a little kick plate at the bottom to keep the firewood from damaging it. And then when you cut the lattice, the edges get a little rough, so you have to put a little trim on there. So you can see how that came out. There's the back side. These are basically 4x8 panels, trimmed in. You can see the bottom details. You can see how the framing came together here. The two frames I first built, the columns on top of it. Pretty basic. This one we had actually framed up, but we decided not to enclose it. We're going to keep this as a flat platform, or we're going to take it out and move it. But that was it. Next step is I'll put purlins on this thing, and we're going to put a metal roof on it. And it shouldn't take much longer at this point. Anyway, that was it. It was an easy one-man job, and it looks good. All right, this is Jim signing out. Hi everyone, it's Jim again. Finally we're done this. It looks so much better than 4 cords of wood dumped on the ground randomly. So let me just show you quickly how we finished it up and we'll be done here. So this open platform, which I showed you in the last video, I just finished up with a standard deck and just threw in a random handrail kind of design thing to make it look a little bit nicer. I tied it together in the back with just a couple of cross beams to give it some rigidity, and it looks pretty good. And so for the roof area, we finished this up. I added a little bit of fascia board to make it look a little nicer and some drip edge, and you can see I put the purlins on, just 2x4x10s went across, and the metal roof went on quite easily. I just took all the panels. I actually had to cut them about 7 inches, and so I cut them all at one time, stacked them up, cut them with a circular saw, and it went pretty well. The edges were pretty nice. And while I had them stacked up, I pre-drilled all the holes, measuring what the lengths of the distance between the purlins were, the 2x4s, and we're able to drill the holes at the same time, and after that, panels went on. I positioned the first one with a little overhang, so it was perfectly square. Screws went right in because I had the holes drilled in, and the rest of the panels went up. These panels were about 15 bucks each for 3 foot across, so it was about $80 or $90 for the roofing material. Not bad for a nice shiny metal roof that should last a very long time. Keep this wood nice and dry. So you can see how that went in. A couple other things here. While we were doing it, I decided to double up the main header beam. This is a 2x10. I added a 2x6 behind it, and then added a connector plate, a mending plate with some bolts in it. Again, this is probably over-designed, but you know what? This is upstate New York, and sometimes you get 4 feet of snow. So if that happens, then I can rest comfortably knowing this roof is not going to go anywhere. So, a couple other things. Right when we finished, I realized we needed a space for kindling. There you go. And for construction debris. My wife calls this affectionately the OCD stack. As you can see, what I did is I built a bonus platform at the end of the project. I just used some landscape timbers and some 2x6s on bricks. I always take even my treated lumber and get it off the ground and put it on bricks because the stuff is not really rated for ground contact. So I built a bonus platform. I took all my construction debris, cut it up into 16-inch lengths or less, including some stuff we had from old siding, some old wainscoting from inside, and meticulously then stacked it up directly under our eave here. So we still have a nice layer of dry storage. At the end, I added a couple of vertical members here to keep the stack from tipping over, making sure my 4-year-old doesn't get in trouble. And now we're in good shape. So we can take a couple of those sticks and these and get a fire started easily every single morning. So that's it. You can do this project. I did it basically with some basic skills, and there we go.